If you love Thai food, then you are definitely going to want to master these 3 Thai classics at home. Thai chicken lap. So when I was growing up, I would have had a lap style salad at least once a week. Twice a week, my mum used to make it with pork, with duck, with all sorts of stuff. I'm gonna make a chicken version today. But first of all, we are going to make a chili powder because loads of you have been writing in and saying you can't find a chili powder that looks similar to mine. So the one that I'm using here in Thailand, you can see like lots of little seeds in there, plus the chili powder as well. And we're gonna make this so that you guys can make it at home as well. So start off with the chilies. You've got the large dried red chilies here. In Thai we call these pritifa. And then you've got the smaller ones. In Thailand we call these ones pritinda. But overseas they're commonly called bird's eye chilies. So look out for those. So anyway, let's start with the large chilies. And I'm just gonna use some scissors to cut them into little small pieces. And then my smaller little spicy guys. Now you want to get these into a dry frying pan and then just heat them and roast them until you'll know when it happens because you'll start to sneeze and you can really smell those chili fumes. Okay, so I'm starting to get some of those fumes in here, and what that tells me is that we're getting to the point where we've released the aromas and the essential oils in those chilies, and that's just what we want. Oh, it's getting hot in here. Now I'm going to use a little coffee grinder to grind these up. Ooh, it's dangerous business. Okay, so you can see that we've got a really beautiful powder here, as well as some seeds as well. And this is just a really good texture. I like the level of spice in this type of chili powder as well. Okay, now the other essential ingredient for any larp salad is the roasted rice powder. If you've ever tried to make larp at home and it hasn't tasted quite like the one you had at your really good Thai restaurant, it's because you've left this ingredient out. So what you need is some raw sticky rice. It's also called glutinous rice. You can use regular long grain, but I do find that it's a little tougher to break down and can be a little bit too crunchy. So try to find the sticky rice, and then you want to get that straight into a dry frying pan as well. And then just keep these guys dancing around in the pan until they're a beautiful dark golden color, and you can kind of smell, it's almost like a popcorn kind of smell. It's very toasty and nutty. Okay, these are looking really beautiful. I'm going to use my mortar and pestle now to grind them to a fine powder. So this is the kind of texture that you're looking for. Okay, so now let's get the rest of our stuff going that we need for this salad. I'm gonna get the dressing done first, and I've got some palm sugar here. Now this is what palm sugar will look like when you grab it from the store. It's kind of like a firm block. So you just need to shave the palm sugar, and shaving it with your knife means you're also softening it so it'll dissolve in the dressing. Now for this one, if you can't get palm sugar, you can just use normal white sugar. And to that I'm gonna add some fish sauce and some of that chili powder. Now be a little cautious here because we can always add more chili later, and then a little dusting of the rice powder as well. I just press down on my limes, just release all the juices inside. Now I'm just going to squeeze a couple of tablespoons in here. I like to finish my seasoning at the end when I can taste everything together, so I'll leave some lime slices aside for that. So this is just classic Thai food magic happening here. The sweet, the sour, the salty, the spicy, all the good things. Now for the salad itself, I also want some little red Asian shallots here. You could also use red onion as well. Okay, so now let's talk about the herbs. I think this is another crucial part of this salad that you need to get right. So first of all, I'm going to start off with some spring onion. And then here in Thailand we have a type of coriander that's called in English sawtooth coriander. So you can see why it's called sawtooth. It's got this kind of ridged edge. Now if you can find this herb at an Asian grocer or a Thai grocer, please go ahead and try it. It has the most amazing sort of beautiful, almost medicinal, slightly bitter flavor. But you can just leave it out if you can't find it, but look out for it, sawtooth coriander. And then I want some regular coriander as well. Now I know a lot of you are not huge fans of coriander, and you're in luck, because if not, you can leave it out for this salad, because the most important herb, I think, is actually the mint. Okay, so now time to cook our chicken, and the way we're going to do this might be a little bit unconventional by Western standards, but traditionally the meat for a larb salad is generally poached in some water, some liquid. So I'm going to use chicken mince here. I'm going to add some liquid into the pan, just a little bit of water. And I'm going to add my chicken mince in here. And the whole idea here is that we don't want to fry the meat. We don't want any browning, we just want the meat to cook through without colouring. Okay, so you want to be breaking up that chicken as it cooks in the water. Often when I'm doing the pork version of this, I don't bother with the water, because there seems to be so much fat and juice in the pork that it kind of cooks itself. So I just put it into a dry frying pan. But with the chicken, I think it's particularly important, because otherwise it just browns too much. So that doesn't take very long at all. And now what I want to do is kind of scoop the chicken into a bowl. I don't want too much of that liquid though, so I'm just going to leave that behind in the pan. Now while the chicken is really hot and steamy, I like to add in the red shallots and then also a little bit of dressing. And I just give that a bit of a mix first, because I find that heat kind of softens the harsh onion flavour. Okay, now time for all those beautiful herbs and my mint, and then more of that dressing. And now give that a really good mix, and then we're going to do some final seasoning. Those fresh herbs, and the dressing and the chili and everything, it's just like this massive explosion. Great. I'm going to add a little bit more dressing and then a little bit more of this roasted rice powder for me, I think. Now the rice powder does two things. It adds a really beautiful, almost nutty kind of flavor, and it also makes sure that the dressing and everything kind of thickens up a little bit and really coats all of those bits of chicken. And for me, it's just not quite spicy enough. This is supposed to be a really super hot, spicy dish. Obviously, if you want to keep it mild, leave the chili out, but I'm going to add more. Okay, now we're really good. So good. Now to serve it all up, we're going to do it the traditional way so you guys can see how we would eat it here in Bangkok. So what we like to do is have a little bit of cabbage on the side. And then these guys here are called snake beans, and you can see they've got kind of like a rough edge here. You could just use green beans as well. And some cucumber. I put my salad out on the plate. A little bit of extra mint. And then the whole idea here is that the chicken is really super hot. And then all these bits and pieces like the cabbage and the beans and the cucumber, that'll cool down your palate in between mouthfuls of the chicken. So there you go. And I am just gonna get stuck right in, guys, because childhood favorite dish, can't resist. So spicy, so good. Number 2, basil and pork stir fry, or Padgobao mo. First up, let's talk about basil. Now, Bagkrabao in Thailand means holy basil, and that's this basil that has this really spicy, peppery flavor, which is a little different to your regular Italian basil. If you can't find holy basil, try for Thai basil. It has purple stems and a sweet aniseed flavor. Otherwise, just use regular Italian basil. Traditionally, this dish is all about the chili spice, but if chili's not your thing, I'm going to show you a way to kind of pull back on that heat. So you're going to start off with some of these little scud chilies. So these are super spicy chilies. In Thai they're called prikinu. So these are the chilies that are going to make your dish really spicy. So you can just add a few, add a lot, or leave them out altogether. For some color, you can use these long red chilies, and these ones are really mild, so you can add these in. They just have like a capsicum flavor. Now for the sauce. It's just oyster sauce, soy sauce, fish sauce, and some sugar. Okay, to cook, we just start with a little bit of oil, and you want to add some garlic. Okay, and then our chilies. This is the moment when your eyes start to water a little bit. Now add your pork mince. Now you could use any kind of mince that you like. Chicken mince, turkey, beef also works well. You can also use sliced meat, so thinly sliced pork, chicken, or even seafood as well. When your pork's cooked, add in the sauce. And finally add a heaping handful of basil. This dish is all about the basil, so be generous. Finally, my number one favorite recipe at the moment is Thai Southern fried chicken. So there are a couple of secrets for getting this chicken super awesome. First one is the marinade. So I'm going to start off with some garlic. Okay, I just need a rough chop on those. Now I want the coriander stems and root part because that holds a whole bunch of flavor. Save those coriander leaves for later. And now for the spices. And this is really what kind of sets this chicken apart, this southern fried chicken, from a regular fried chicken in Thailand. So I've got some cumin seeds, and you could use ground cumin, but I like to add in the seeds because even though we're going to blend this, you still get these little sort of pops of cumin flavor as you're eating the chicken. Okay, and I want a really good helping of ground white pepper. So the main flavors here should really be that garlic and pepper flavor. And then I want a little bit of turmeric, and that's gonna give us a little bit of nice color. And now for all the seasonings. I've got some oyster sauce, soy sauce, a dash of sugar. Now that sugar is really important here because you really want to balance between those salty flavors and a little bit of sweetness as well. And then finally, I want a few good pinches of salt. Now just blend that until it's nice and smooth. That smell, I can smell the garlic and the pepper and the cumin. Delightful. Now, one extra tip here for really getting that marinade right inside those chicken pieces is I'm going to slice through to the bone, slice through the meat so that we're getting some extra nooks and crannies for all of marinade to permeate. Slicing the chicken like this also helps it cook faster in the oil, which is good. So I'm using thighs and drumsticks today because, you know, that's just the way I like to roll. But if you would like to use chicken breast or a mixture of pieces, totally up to you. Okay, and these bone-in thighs look quite large, so I'm going to slice them in half. Okay, now I'm going to put these chicken pieces into a bag. And now that super fragrant marinade goes on top. Now we just close that up and give that bag a really good shake. You want to massage those chicken pieces, make sure they're all getting a load of marinade all over them. So this is a super intense marinade, so we don't need an overnight or a couple of days scenario. Just 1 to 2 hours is perfectly fine. Let's open this up and see what we've got. Ah, the smell is so beautiful. And now we'll get the chicken pieces nice and evenly coated in some rice flour. That's what's going to give us that super epic crunch. Looks like these guys are having a roll in the snow. Now for the part where the magic happens, the deep frying. So I want this oil to be hot, but not too hot. So we're looking at about 170 degrees Celsius, about 320 Fahrenheit, because the chicken's going to spend about 8 to 10 minutes in here. Now, if you don't have a thermometer, you can use a wooden spoon, and you're just looking for some fast-paced little bubbles surrounding that wooden spoon. That tells you you're ready to go. Now, safety first, be gentle here. Just slide the chicken pieces in away from you. Now you're going to want to do this in batches so that you give each piece a chance to get its own little patch of oil in there. And I really like to tend to them as I'm cooking, so I'm turning them over, making sure there's no really hot spots at the bottom of the chicken pieces because we want to get an even color all over the outside. What we want is a really beautiful, dark, even crust. Wow, looks good, they're smelling good, the color is unbelievable. You guys are gonna love this one. There's just something about fried chicken that's so joyful. As with anything that's just come out of hot oil, you want to sprinkle them with some salt. And now onto the next batch. So you can keep the first batch in the oven and keep that nice and warm while you're doing the second batch. And now my absolute favorite part, listen to the sound of that chicken. It's ridiculous. Now traditionally with this Hat Yai fried chicken, you serve it with crispy, crunchy shallots, so you want plenty of those. And then you want a sweet chili sauce. Now I like my sauces to be spicy, so I'm going for a spicy sweet chili and just a little sprinkling of coriander on there as well. Wow, you guys are really gonna love this one.
If you've got any comments or questions, pop them below. And if you enjoyed the video, why not hit that subscribe button plus the little bell one, and that way you'll get notified every time I release a new video. Thanks guys.